Hi, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here today, and I'm just going to, we practiced this earlier, but hopefully put up my, and I see, there we are. All right, so I am thrilled to be here today and really appreciate Bernie inviting me to speak today. And you saw the topic for today is from stress to flow, stop treading water and learn to surf. And I'm thrilled that you're here today. So what I'm going to cover today is really talking first about business owners in particular, or entrepreneurs and stress. What happens when our central nervous system is overloaded? Then look at a few tools to stay steady and stay the course. And lastly, looking at how neurofeedback fits into all of this. So let's start with business owners and mental health. So last year, CMHA, Canadian Mental Health Association, and Business Development Canada published a study called Going It Alone, the Mental Health and Wellbeing of Entrepreneurs in Canada. And startlingly, the results of that were that they found that 62% of entrepreneurs feel depressed at least once a week, that female entrepreneurs are at more risk of reporting mental health issues, and nearly 50% of entrepreneurs said that mental health issues impact their ability to work in their business. And that a mere 20% feel satisfied with their mental health less than once a week. So, and that was versus 8% of Canadians who report that. So it's really highlighted that business owners really deal with mental health issues, and I think that's a lot because we are. I think the title "Going It Alone" is very apt. And so they also talked about that the barriers to seeking support for mental health is one, cost, access, limited awareness, so they're not even sure what is out there to support them, and in particular, concerns around stigma if they start asking for help. So I think, now we're 7 months into COVID, and if we were to do that study again, I mean, this study was probably done in 2018, and if we were to do that study now, what the impact would be on those stats, and I am sure they would be even higher than they are in terms of, we know that many businesses have been impacted. Many have had to close. My business has certainly taken a big hit with COVID, and we're all learning to pivot. But one of the recommendations that they had as part of the report was that there really needs to be more discussion and focus about how people are doing within the networks that we belong to. And certainly since COVID began, I've been on multiple networking calls, and it hasn't been a focus, or it's all, we gotta pivot, we gotta do this, we gotta do that, just breathe, keep going. And for some businesses, they've actually thrived, which is great. And for a lot of businesses, they have been running into difficulties. So I just quickly, before I go on, just wanted to get, what are your thoughts on that? Because it hasn't been my experience that mental health and really how we're doing and talking about how we're doing is happening at networking. Any?
Okay, well, I guess I'll say something if you don't mind. I do agree, and it's something that I like to have conversations with. So I do encourage, like, even if we're on the call, trying to get to that more personable place, like reaching out and talking to people, because you just never know, that call could just change something drastically. And I just really think that it's true. I think we should be talking about it more, not always pushing. The reality is there's a lot of people that aren't thriving right now. And so I think just having them show up to calls, a community, and that's really part of what we're building, is that community where people feel safe to come in and say what really is on their mind. Because if we're always living in this bubble that, that it doesn't matter, that's the problem. We need to have real conversation and go, you know what, today's a crap day. And I'll just a little post. I'm very thankful to have Bernie and Denny, because there has been days that have not been that great for me through the last 7 months, where I just had enough, couldn't do it. And then I had to share it, then I felt better, and then I could keep going. And I think that that's kind of where I go, Chris.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's the sharing and getting it out that's key. Anyone else have a comment?
I just wanted to say that, like, in my past corporate life, I've been part of networking groups where they had that, proverbial old boys club feeling, and just in general had that atmosphere of that you didn't feel like you were a person. You were either a referral, a lead, or something like that. And it wasn't until I actually opened up about my mental health issues that I was going through, and the atmosphere of that group just totally changed from like 1 week to the next, to the next, to the next. And every time I keep checking back in with them, and it's that same atmosphere where we see people now as people. And yeah, it's nice to be able to have that space. Like, the feelings I get from this group feels very much like a safe space that, yeah, if I log in and I feel like I'm having a crappy day, then I feel safe to say, hey, I'm here, just listening, whatever. But but yes, I agree that we need to have these spaces where we are people first and foremost, and then we are the latter afterwards.
Yeah, that's great, and glad that you were open or able to open that up, and that's certainly what I encourage everybody to do. And as you are in other networking groups, to ask that be a topic for at least part of the meeting. Okay, thank you. So now I'm just going to talk about a little bit about nervous system overload and what that looks like. So basically, when our nervous system is overloaded, and our nervous system is called central because it affects everything in all our systems. And when it's overloaded, it's like in that danger zone, and we can find ourselves in chronic hyper arousal, where we're stuck in that fight, flight, or freeze, either going towards the danger, running away from it, or absolutely being frozen by it. And the effect of that is that it impacts our sleep, our focus and concentration. It's difficult for us to make decisions as business owners. We find ourselves emotionally overwhelmed, irritable, and tired all the time. Our thoughts start to be on that hamster wheel that won't stop, and physically can be all sorts of symptoms as well, in terms of heart palpitations, shallow breathing. Our muscles and joints can get tense, and that over time is going to have a significant can have a significant impact if we're not interrupting that cycle. It puts us at increased risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, lowers our immune system, gastrointestinal issues, and that's like the tip of the iceberg. So we really have to be using tools to deal with the stress that we're under, both as business owners and layering COVID-19 and all the other things happening in the world on top of that, because there's none of us that aren't affected with stress at this point. And it's really about dealing. We have been dealing often with the situation, like we address the situation, but we're not dealing with the feelings. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more too. And we get stuck in that stress loop. And when that happens, literally the back of the brain is running the show, where it's the emotional part of the brain is, and our thinking brain, or the frontal cortex, is literally offline. So line, I use that if any of you used to watch Frasier, Frasier has left the building. So we don't have that capacity to access problem solving. So as luck would have it, last night, I'm a total Brene Brown fan, and I listen to her podcasts all the time. And last night I turned on podcast, and lo and behold, it was Emily and Amelia Nagoski who were talking about their book called Burnout and How to Complete the Stress Cycle. And I was going, oh my God, I could like revamp my entire talk just to talk about their book. But the basic things that I took from the podcast were that, for years we think that thinking is what we do. We're rational beings who occasionally have emotions. And what we've been seeing, or what has come to be recognized more over the past several years, is that really we are emotional beings who on occasion think. But we always tend to, culturally, and that's what we're taught, just stuff down those emotions, don't be emotional. And particularly as women, that message comes across loud and clear. And so what they talk about is that emotions have a beginning, middle, and an end. They have a cycle. And if we get through the cycle, we'll be much better off. And when we don't go through that cycle and we get stuck, that's when exhaustion happens. And so instead of turning away from emotions and our feelings, we really need to turn towards them. And the analogy that they use is, when emotions come up, think of it like a tunnel, that if you go all the way through the emotions or through the tunnel, you get to the light at the end of the tunnel. But if you stay and if you put the emotions aside and try to ignore them, you end up in the dark in the tunnel, and you're stuck and not knowing where to go. So really encourage you to listen to that podcast. I'm definitely going to get download the book. I'm into audiobooks right now, so I'll be listening to that in the next couple of weeks. And they also talked, I didn't get it on a slide, but so they talk about burnout being about emotional exhaustion. So these are the signs: emotional exhaustion, which is fatigue from carrying too much for too long; decreased sense of accomplishment, so really a sense of futility, feeling like nothing we do makes a difference; and depersonalization, which is that we feel depleted of empathy and compassion. And I think we're seeing burnout more and more these days. So I painted a bit of a bleak picture, but what are we going to do about it? The whole point of that is that we really need to be conscious that stress is impacting us. And so point there, well, talking about airplanes, what do they say every time? Put on your own mask first. You have to look after yourself before you can help anyone else. And so there are tons of tools out there. Emily and Amelia, their top 5, which were already on my list, are exercise, whether it's walking or any form of exercise, because you're actually using your body and you're moving those emotions through, because they are stored. We're storing those emotions and feelings in our body. So exercise, breathing is an excellent tool. And so actually, I'm going to get you to do a quick breath. What I'm going to get you to do is breathe into 5, slight hold, and then breathing out for as long as you can. And that really brings the parasympathetic system down. So I'm going to breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold, and out, 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 out. And what I actually use with the choir that I direct, which forces them to breathe out a little more slowly, is taking that breath in and then blowing like you're letting the air out as if you're blowing through a straw. So it's like, and if you can do that and get up to 15 or 20 seconds, will just also be a great tool. Meditation, of course, is an excellent tool. Mindfulness, my go-to person for mindfulness is Tara Brock. She has a wonderful mindfulness practice called RAIN, which stands for Recognize, Allow, Investigate, and Nurture. So it's really getting in touch with what's bothering you happening in your body. She has tons of meditations and practices for that on her website. So encourage you to check Tara Brock out. And you can also, last month, my newsletter, which is posted on LinkedIn, was all about RAIN. So you can also take a look there if you like. Using humor, and Amelia and Emily really talked about, well, humor and really that belly laugh. It's not that, ha, 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 but you know, like you really have that strong reaction to something, and that will also bring the stress down. I always stick in eating well, because that impacts so many areas of our life as well. And then these days, well, there are tons of online programs and well, yoga, as you talked about, Jan. There's Qigong, there's Feldenkrais. I did a Feldenkrais class early on, which was fabulous, or lots of fitness programs. So there are multitudes of tools out there, and different ones speak to different people. So pick your top ones and put them in place. Now, so where does neurofeedback and NeurOptimal neurofeedback fit into all of that? Well, how I have started describing it is that when most people come to me, their central nervous system is in that stuck state, very overwhelmed. It's like they are the state, and they know those tools are out there. They know they should be walking, they know they should be doing mindfulness, etc. And it's like those tools are over on an island and they have no transportation to get there. And so what NeurOptimal neurofeedback does is provide a bridge back to those tools, because it's interrupting that overwhelmed pattern at an electrical level over and over and over and over, and over time bringing the central nervous system down, and it does it in fairly quickly. So then like I was talking about earlier, the where instead of the back of the brain running the show, then the frontal cortex comes back online, and then they're actually able to use some of those tools. Lots of people then use a couple of other tools and then come for neurofeedback tune-up every so often, just to keep things in balance. And so I think that's the biggest thing. It fairly quickly brings people their nervous system back into balance, so that then they can use other tools to, or continue with neurofeedback to keep them in balance. So I've got there at the top, remember 256. So this is a technology-based program, and I'm just going to be right back. I'm going to get that going. Basically, it's a laptop, and people are connected to the laptop with 5 sensors. And the sensors go on top of the ears, top of the head, and one goes on the bottom right. And what people are watching, should they wish, so this is one of my systems, and you can see some fractals there, and so people are connected. They're listening to nice music, or for children, they are listening to movies that I have loaded on. And what's happening is that the sensors are reading the electrical activity in the brain 256 times a second. So some people call that meditation on steroids, or I call it meditation times 100, because each 33-minute session could be like doing meditation or having 100 hours of meditation. So being interrupted that often, it allows the nervous system to come back to the breath in meditation hundreds and hundreds of times during the session, and that's why the nervous system settles down more quickly. So it's just giving the brain and nervous system feedback or information about what it's doing in real time. So the example I use is that fight or flight. It's reading the electrical activity, and the music is interrupted for just a moment, and that's like you've just gone into fight or flight, or you're just about to go into fight or flight. Is that what you want to do? And in that particular moment or millisecond, the nervous system doesn't need to be in that state. So then it calms. Second later, oh, you've just gone into fight or flight. Is that what you want to do? And comes down, and that happens over and over and over. And so instead of the nervous system like vibrating up here when people come to see me, and then anything that happens, they're over the top and into reaction over time. The nervous system settles, and then there's much more capacity, or it's called a window of tolerance, that if something happens, then the system can go up and down, but it's not going over the top. And then as a result, sleep improves, attention and focus improve, our mood improves, our irritability comes down, that we get off the hamster wheel, and we're really more able, our clients are more able to, instead of feeling like they are their symptoms and they're stuck in them, and as I said, treading water as fast as they can to stay above the water, they're more able to move into that witness or observer role and go, oh, I see that that's happening, or my sleep is starting to be affected. Oh, okay, I need to take care of that. And so there's much more capacity. So what I say that after sessions, NeurOptimal sessions, what people have is more ability to emotionally regulate. They're much more able to make empowered choices in terms of using this and other tools. And then their productive energy really improves because they have that focus. They're not as exhausted. And so they can get a lot more done in their day or in their business. And so how does it work? Well, I am still doing in-office sessions. I do have COVID protocols in place, so it is safe, and totally understand that a lot of people these days aren't comfortable going to offices unless they really need to. So I'm very fortunate because NeurOptimal is this type of neurofeedback is a training. It's a brain training, not a treatment. I also have systems that I can rent, so people can do sessions at home. And I either provide in-person or online training and support while sessions happen at home. And the beauty of that is that anyone then in the household can do sessions. And I also talk about, because I work with a number of families, that each of us has our own nervous system that's vibrating somewhere in that spectrum, and then we also have a family nervous system. So when one member of the family, their nervous system is off, that absolutely impacts everyone else's nervous system and the overall family nervous system. So I always encourage additional members of the family to do sessions as well. This type of neurofeedback can also be covered under occupational therapy. And as I worked with a number of children who were on the autism spectrum or with ADHD, Asperger's, particularly with autism, occupational therapy is covered as part of the Ontario autism funding too. So that's it in a nutshell. And yeah, there's my contact information. I also put it in the chat, and love to chat with anyone, or if you know of anyone whose stress or anxiety level is such that they're really having trouble coping and using other tools, love to chat with them. In the meantime, any other questions that you have?